Hey, this is Charles Johnson, National Editor of Farm Journal and Top Producer Magazines. I'm here outside Memphis, Tennessee today at the National Cotton Council headquarters talking with Gary Adams, the council's economist. Gary, our cotton acres this year, everybody's projecting that to be reduced again for the third year in a row. What do you see happening for cotton and some of the ramifications for that around the belt?
Oh, you're right. As we look at the most recent numbers that came out was USDA's prospective plantings report at the end of March, and it did call for cotton acres at 8.8 million acres, which compares to about 9.4 million in 2008. So again, another decline. If you look across the belt, you see a lot of the decline occurring in the Mid-South, a little bit in the Southeast and the Southwest, and then out west in California. The losses out west, a lot due to the availability of water. The losses in the Mid-South, primarily due to competition from soybeans more than anything. It does appear, though, as you look at the changes that we're seeing in acres, it does seem like the losses are moderating somewhat. We are seeing cotton acres hold their own relative to last year in some states such as Georgia, for example. Texas, I don't think we expect to see a big change in acres relative to where we were a year ago. So it does suggest, I think, growers are still looking at relative market prices and taking that into consideration as they make those acreage decisions. And from this point, a lot of what we'll be looking at is, what happens in terms of the crop getting planted, but then also what goes on in the weather, because we know there's certainly some challenges as we look at the Southwest, particularly South Texas being extremely dry, so the market's going to be focused on the production potential as well as we go through the growing season.
Okay, Gary, so it looks like under 9 million acres this year for cotton. How would that compare, let's say, with back in '06, acreage-wise?
If you do, look, going back to where we were at some of the higher levels, we were really at a point in '05 and '06 where we were in the neighborhood of 14 million acres. That gives you some sense of how much things have changed. Really, we're going to be looking at acreage levels that are probably the lowest that we would have seen since 1983.
Really. With this drop in acres, we haven't seen a corresponding increase in prices. Do you see any opportunity for price recovery this year?
Well, I think there are a couple of things we need to look at as we go forward, and one of the things to keep in mind, obviously, is the overall economic situation, and the slowdown in the economy or the contraction in the economy has led to some weakness in cotton demand, and that's clearly been weighing on the market over the last several months. Is the weakening demand picture, and the fact that has allowed stock levels to remain at some fairly large levels. And with those stocks hanging over the market, I do think that makes price rallies difficult. So if you just look at cotton fundamentals, it gets tough to call for any significant rallies. I think one of the big uncertainties out there is the fact that so much of what happens in the cotton prices is tied to what happens in commodity prices overall. And if we see with some of the changes that have occurred because of fiscal and monetary policy that leads to some inflationary pressure across commodities, if we see oil prices start to recover, grain and oilseed prices start to recover, then that's where you could talk about as well the potential for cotton prices to be a bit more bullish as we get through the rest of this year.
Well, Gary, textile mills in the United States, the numbers have declined tremendously over the past decade or so, which has turned our crop into more of a global marketing crop. China and India have huge impact worldwide on cotton markets. What do you see going on in China and India that might interest some of our farmers out there?
We do have to be mindful of China and India for a couple of reasons. I mean, those are two of the larger cotton markets that are out there. China has been our largest customer of U.S. cotton because they do import a lot off the world market. They also produce a lot of cotton. They've been taking steps to try to support their prices for growers. They've actually accumulated a lot of cotton from last year's crop in their government reserves. Their textile mills are also facing some of the same pressures because of this slowdown in demand. So, we still see China being an importer of cotton going forward. The uncertainty there will be what do they decide to do in terms of releasing that cotton from their stocks? How aggressive are they? But we do think they will continue to be an importer of cotton. They've been a fairly strong buyer over the last several weeks, so we'll see how long that holds. The other one is India, who's really emerged on the world market over the last 4 to 5 years with increases in their production. They've actually expanded their support to cotton, increased their support prices, introduced some export subsidies, and they've developed as a strong competitor of the United States in the export market. With their current support prices at a level that they are well above market prices, they've been accumulating production in their stock reserves as well. That's reduced their exports in the short term and allowed the U.S. to continue to export cotton. The concern and the uncertainty to watch over the next several months is how long do they hold those stocks, and when do they start releasing those into export channels. So we've got, it makes a difficult situation as growers try to unravel the market, because a couple of key players, China and India, just introduce a lot of uncertainty, because a lot of what's happening is due to their government policy decisions rather than market forces.
Well, it looks like we're going to continue to see a lot of challenges for U.S. cotton producers in the next few years and the industry as a whole. Well, Gary, appreciate you talking with us today. This is Charles Johnson, National Editor of Farm Journal and top producer magazines, reporting from Memphis, Tennessee.